There's a mysterious reason why some individuals seem unshakable in the face of life's trials. While the world around them descends into chaos, detractors hurl insults, meticulously crafted plans crumble, and failures relentlessly pursue them, they maintain remarkable composure, as if untouched by the raging storm. What secret knowledge do they possess that remains inaccessible to the rest of us? Most people live their days in a constant state of reaction to external stimuli. A traffic incident where someone brazenly cuts them off instantly triggers a surge of anger. A colleague's passive-aggressive comment can instantly alter their mood. A random, strange look from a stranger suddenly breeds self-doubt. But what if there were a way to break free from these shackles? What if no person, situation, or external force had the power to disrupt inner peace? Carl Jung once observed that many people are prisoners of their own reactions. They are convinced that the world directly affects them, while in reality they are merely reflecting what they have yet to recognize and accept within themselves. And here's the truth: nothing can truly affect a person unless it finds some vulnerable point within their inner world to latch onto. If someone calls you stupid and it evokes anger, it's because deep down there's a fear that there might be a grain of truth to it. If someone ignores you and it causes resentment, it indicates that a part of the personality is still seeking approval from others. Different people can perceive the same event in completely different ways, and the reason lies not so much in the external circumstances as in their inner world. This process is often called shadow work, which implies awareness of the unconscious aspects of one's personality. Every irritation, frustration, or emotional trigger is a kind of signal from within, which many prefer to ignore or suppress, shifting the blame to the external world. However, those who have embarked on the path of self-discovery come to realize that the external world is a reflection of their internal state. This understanding unlocks access to the amazing ability to shape one's reality through self-management. The problem is that most people are not ready to accept this idea. It's easier for them to believe that their suffering is caused by external factors, such as a boss, a former partner, or simply bad luck. Admitting that they themselves may be the cause of their problems seems more difficult than accepting life's injustice. But for those who are brave enough to look inside themselves, stop blaming and start observing, a path to new freedom opens up. This is a path to self-knowledge and personal growth, which allows one to gain control over their life and destiny. Refusing to react to external stimuli opens the way to genuine freedom from manipulation. There's no longer a need to avoid unpleasant people or try to control the surrounding world. A person becomes invulnerable while remaining sensitive, rather than turning into an emotionless machine. It's a choice between illusory control and the liberating power of acceptance. Most people spend precious years trying to subdue what is inherently uncontrollable. They crave universal love, predictability in life, and the fulfillment of their own plans. And when reality doesn't meet their expectations, they suffer. Resentment overwhelms them when they face disrespect, and a life that deviates from the intended script is perceived as betrayal. They take everything to heart, seeing a personal conspiracy of the universe against them. However, the truth is that in this world only one thing is under a person's complete control: their own perception. Carl Jung insightfully noted that the external world is neutral. It's neither good nor evil, neither cruel nor merciful. It simply exists, and it is the lens of perception that gives it one color or another. Consider an example. Two people face the same situation, be it a breakup, financial collapse, or professional failure. One plunges into despair, believing that the world is collapsing. The other sees it as a valuable lesson, an opportunity for growth, and a new door leading to something better. The difference lies solely in their perception. Carl Jung, the eminent thinker, once remarked, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The depth of this thought lies in the following. Until a person becomes aware of the subconscious scripts they unconsciously project onto others, onto notions of success, love, and self-worth, they will continue to operate under the influence of these unconscious beliefs. A person will naively believe that life is simply a series of random events not realizing that they are largely the creators of their own reality. And this is where it gets interesting. The stronger the desire to control external circumstances, the more power over one's inner world is ceded to those very circumstances. As soon as there is an acute need for someone's recognition, that someone gains leverage. As soon as there is a persistent desire for a situation to develop according to a specific script, that situation begins to dominate. As soon as a person starts demanding justice from life, they are doomed to disappointment. However, when liberation from the illusion of control occurs, the perspective changes dramatically. True freedom arrives, freedom from the need for approval, from the fear of possible failures, from the constant tension that arises when trying to squeeze life into the framework of idealized notions. Think about this deeply. Truly invulnerable in this world are not those who seek to subdue the surrounding reality, but those who have reached the heights of self-control. In the epicenter of raging chaos, they maintain composure. In shaky uncertainty, they demonstrate unwavering resilience, indifferent to gossip and unafraid of the future. They have grasped a secret, eluding the understanding of most. Comprehensive control is just a mirage, and true strength lies in the ability to submit to the inevitable. The very moment a person ceases to obsessively pursue illusory control, they gain true power. And here is the paradox. As soon as the obsessive need for everything to go according to plan disappears, events surprisingly begin to fall into place favorably. When a person frees themselves from the fear of other people's opinions, self-confidence blossoms on its own like a beautiful flower. As soon as the pursuit of success, dictated by a feeling of inferiority, ceases, opportunities begin to arise effortlessly on life's path. If you stop resisting the flow of life and start moving in unison with it, everything starts to fall into place with almost no effort. This is not just speculative philosophy, it is a scientific fact confirmed by neurobiology. Research in the field of cognitive psychology convincingly proves the more a person tries to forcibly establish control over other people, circumstances, or even their own thoughts, the more resistance they cause. That is why people desperately in need of love often push it away from themselves. Fear of failure breeds self-destructive behavior, and those who desperately cling to control ultimately experience a feeling of profound powerlessness. Ask yourself a vital question. Are you going with the flow of circumstances, or are you an active creator of your destiny? Do you really control your thoughts and feelings, or do you allow the external world to dictate how you feel? As soon as you realize that nothing outside your inner world has power over your emotional state, life will appear to you in a completely different light. Imagine this situation. You are leisurely strolling down the street, immersed in your thoughts, and suddenly someone shouts an insult in your face. Perhaps you are called ignorant, insignificant, or predicted a disgraceful future. Stop for a moment and analyze your feelings. What's happening inside you at this very moment? Most people immediately take a defensive position or feel deeply hurt. Emotions overwhelm them before they have time to realize what is happening. The heart begins to beat wildly, anger flares up like a fire, and the mind repeatedly scrolls through offensive words, like a broken record, only adding fuel to the fire of disappointment. But now imagine a completely different reaction, complete calm, absence of emotional outburst, any tension, just a quiet internal awareness that says, this has nothing to do with me. This is the essence of the teachings of the Stoics, the way of life of Zen masters, and the deep insight of Carl Jung. Nothing from the outside can disturb your inner peace unless you allow it yourself. However, it is worth penetrating to the heart of the matter even deeper. What exactly makes most people feel offended? The reason lies in their unconscious identification with a false self, with that fragile construct of personality that is erected on the shaky foundation of other people's opinions, the desire for approval, and a rigid attachment to their ideas about what the world should be like. And when someone dares to challenge this carefully constructed identity, the person perceives it as a direct personal attack. It's no longer just an insult, but a threat to the very narrative they've created about themselves, about who they are. Carl Jung called this the shadow self, that hidden, dark area of our psyche where we bury our deepest fears, insecurities, and unresolved emotional wounds. And when someone touches us with their words or actions, they don't inflict new pain, but only bring to light what has long lived within us. It's like exposing an old bleeding wound that has always been there. It's worth pondering. If a person were truly in harmony with themselves, if they accepted themselves completely, then someone's insult would simply have no meaning for them. It wouldn't touch them, wouldn't leave a trace. It would pass through them like wind through an open window. It would be like a shout in the mountains, just an echo that returns untouched, unable to move anything. Thus, the main question to ask oneself is, why does such a violent reaction arise? What exactly in the words or actions of another person makes us feel vulnerable and hurt? A critical remark thrown at a person often wounds their ego because deep down they fear that there may be some truth in that reproach. Disrespect from others causes a burst of anger, which indicates a continuing desire for recognition and approval. When life circumstances deviate from the intended course, despair sets in as the person clings to a specific scenario of events. However, the root of the problem lies not in external circumstances, but in the perception of one's own personality. True strength lies not in suppressing critical voices, avoiding discomfort, or eliminating all obstacles, but in developing an unwavering mind. A mind that does not depend on external approval, does not collapse under the burden of pressure, and fully realizes the simple truth. Control over the situation begins with perception. This principle is supported by scientific data in the field of psychology. Studies show that emotional reactivity is an acquired habit. The brain forms and strengthens neural connections based on repeated reactions. The more often a person allows the outside world to determine their emotions, the more automatic this reaction becomes. But there is good news. The brain has the ability to retrain. Neurobiologists have proven that with the help of mindfulness, cognitive reappraisal, and intentional confrontation with discomfort, one can reprogram their emotional reactions. Over time, offensive words lose their sharpness, mistakes cease to define personality, and the unknown no longer inspires the same trepidation. There comes a moment when a person ceases to be a puppet in the hands of circumstances and gains power over themselves, becoming almost invulnerable. The secret of this transformation lies not in changes in the surrounding world, but in the transformation of the person themselves. There is one amazing feature in human nature. People tend to think that they react to external stimuli, but in reality they always react to themselves. Suppose someone insults a person and their words wound like a dagger, but it is worth stopping and thinking, where exactly is the pain felt? Not in the words themselves, but in the meaning that the offended person attaches to them, in the old wounds they touch, in the stories buried in the depths of the subconscious, in those parts of the personality that have not yet been completely healed. Carl Jung, a famous Swiss psychiatrist and philosopher, deeply understood this connection. He once remarked that everything that irritates us in others can lead to an understanding of ourselves. This is the uncomfortable truth that many prefer to avoid. Nothing, absolutely nothing from the outside has power over a person if they do not allow it to happen. Imagine a mirror. If the reflection in it suddenly frowned, would anyone shout at the mirror? Rather, the person would understand that it is they themselves who are frowning. However, when life reflects the inner world, when people touch a raw nerve, when situations cause a storm of emotions, people often react as if the problem is in the mirror. They point a finger at others, demand change, missing the most important thing: the external world is just a reflection of what already exists inside. The question worthy of deep reflection: why is humanity inclined to give such significant power to factors that lie outside its own self? The answer lies in a phenomenon known as attachment. When an individual's self-esteem is inextricably linked to external attributes, whether it be public opinion, the desire for approval, or achieved results, they inevitably become hostages to these very factors. They find themselves at the mercy of other people's judgments, subject to the influence of external events, and vulnerable in the face of failures. But what happens if a person refuses to participate in this eternal game? What if, instead of automatically reacting to external stimuli, they prefer the role of an outside observer? Detachment, contrary to popular belief, does not imply emotional coldness or insensitivity. Rather, it is synonymous with steadfastness. It's the realization that a person is not just a collection of fleeting emotions, but rather the awareness that observes these emotions. Imagine a raging storm. Thunder rumbles through the air, the wind howls with ferocious power, and lightning pierces the sky. However, above this raging storm, untouched and serene, stretches the sky itself. A person is not the storm, they are the sky. This is an undeniable truth. True strength lies not in striving to control the world around us, but in the ability to manage one's own perception. The moment a person stops automatically reacting to external stimuli, they begin to regain control over their reality. Those around them intuitively sense this change. They lose the ability to manipulate them, involve them in someone else's chaos, or infringe on their inner peace. Now they are the rightful master of their energy. So the pressing question arises, how does one achieve this state of imperturbable presence where nothing can throw one off balance? The path to it begins with a deep re-evaluation of the very process of awareness. It is necessary to realize that a person reacts not to the world as it is, but to their own perception of this world, distorted by the prism of the mind. Just look at a simple situation. Two people encounter the same event, but their reactions are diametrically opposed. For example, one of them is pushed on the street. The first simply shrugs and continues on their way, not dwelling on the incident. The second, on the other hand, cannot calm down for a long time, plunging into a whirlpool of anger and disappointment. The event is the same, but the reactions are completely different. Why is that? Because the reaction is not due to the event itself, but to how the mind interprets it. The famous psychologist Carl Jung often spoke of the existence of the shadow self, those hidden, unconscious aspects of our personality that we try to suppress and displace. These are our unhealed wounds, deeply hidden emotions, and fears that we stubbornly pretend do not exist. However, it is these subconscious forces that have a tremendous impact on our lives, often determining our actions and decisions. Why do certain words strike a nerve? Why do some people easily irritate us? The answer is simple. They touch those parts of our personality that are not yet fully recognized and accepted. If someone is able to manipulate a person's emotions, it speaks not to their strength, but to the fact that they find a vulnerable spot in their inner world, that unresolved problem that is waiting for its moment. Transforming into a bastion of equanimity and resilience lies not in suppressing natural human emotions, but in a courageous and conscious confrontation with them. It is important not to run away from one's own triggers, but to carefully observe them, analyzing the reasons for their occurrence. The key moment is to rethink the situation, shifting the focus from the question, "Why did they do this to me?" to a deep self-knowledge. What exactly in me causes such a reaction at this moment? For clarity, imagine a chessboard. Most people live their lives like pawns, unable to influence the course of the game, and only reacting to the actions of others. However, true mastery lies in becoming a player who can see the entire board, anticipate the development of events, and develop a strategy while maintaining composure and equanimity. An even higher level is the position of an observer who looks at the game from the outside, noticing patterns and trends even before they appear. This is the essence of emotional detachment, not in insensitivity and suppression of emotions, but in a deep awareness and understanding of their nature, in gaining control over one's own feelings. A person ceases to be a hostage of their reactions and becomes the master of their mind. As soon as this happens, the world around begins to change. Those around notice the changes that have taken place. There is no longer a need to chase approval, as people themselves begin to seek favor. Negative emotions lose their power because they no longer receive nourishment. A person ceases to be a puppet in the hands of circumstances and begins to determine their own destiny. The secret lies in constant self-analysis and awareness in every moment of time. In any situation, a person has a choice to react mindlessly or to observe consciously. The next time someone tries to provoke you into a conflict or throw you off balance, take a conscious pause. Catch the elusive fraction of a second before the automatic reaction takes over. Feel the surge of emotions rising, but instead of diving headfirst into them, become an outside observer like a scientist studying an experiment in progress. Be curious, stay calm, and remain detached. It is in that fleeting moment of stillness and focus that your true power lies. How do you cultivate this awareness to the level of an instinctive habit? That is the question we will delve into further. For the very moment you cease being a puppet in someone else's hands, allowing the world to pull the strings of your soul will be the moment you reclaim your personal power. Master your reactions, learn to manage them, and you will gain control over your reality, becoming the architect of your own destiny.